Good afternoon. Good to see y'all. Yeah, so we get to talk about celebrating 20 years of Lineworker Training at COLT. So that's pretty exciting, right? I'll be honest, I'd love to talk about culture. I'd love to talk about safety and all the things that you guys are doing, the things that you can do. But this is great. This is going to be a great session. I just want to say this, just being in these meetings, I don't take meetings like this for granted anymore. I just want to say thank you for being good people. Get to talk to you, I've gotten to know so many of you, and there's just so many good people in this room, and I never want to take that for granted. The co-op group is a special group, and so just want to thank you for who you are, what you do, and so I'm part of other groups that are not in the electric utility industry that are not like this, and so anyway, so I don't take it for granted at all. So all right, here we go, celebrating 20 years of Lineworker Training at COLT. So I get the first 10 minutes, and then Kyle will finish it off. I'll try to keep mine to 10, Kyle, okay?
All right.
So anyway, all right. So when we first started, okay, we jumped ahead there. Okay, so when we first started the training, I mean, there was a lot that happened. Is Ken Kaler in the room? Did he come? Did he show up today? Ken Kaler, he was gonna show up. So he's not here. Okay. So anyway, but there was a dream here at OEC that I was not a part of, but some key people were. Lynn Askins, Ken Kaler. There was a dream by several key people in the state, and that was really an apprentice line worker program built by Ohio's co-ops for Ohio's co-ops. And that was what really drove everything from the get-go, pushing into an apprentice program. There was, if you guys all remember, kind of the correspondence training we had in place. This is still happening at a lot of places. I just want you guys to know that. As we have moved in to our apprentice line worker program, heavy, this is still going on a lot in the nation as far as the correspondence training. That's an old picture, isn't it? So anyway, remember Dennis Merchant? You got the Dennis Merchant program. We had the moved into the NUS video training. We had testing that was held at Morrow Electric back then, which became Consolidated. That's where I came from. Very little hands-on training in the field. Deemed mostly effective. I remember the story where they had a graduating class, and one of the things that they did in the graduating class, they would put them out on a pole. They'd have to go climb a pole. Well, the guy in his fourth year, as he was graduating, he went up the pole and he froze up on the pole, and they had to rescue him to get him down. And so he failed. The apprenticeship program by that measure. So anyway, so really moving off of this, saying correspondence training in itself without hands-on and without reinforcement in a really formalized setting, it's really tough, okay? And so anyway, the objective was really, I really want to celebrate 20 years of improvement in safety, because the objective of the program was really to reduce serious injuries and fatalities of line workers, of your linemen, okay? That's the whole objective. And so, you think about that, and really, what have we seen? We've seen tremendous movement. And so, but it was very simple moving forward. Steps taken to achieve. Back in the late 90s, there was a meeting between Marion Tech and OREC back at the time. It was Lynn Askins, Ken Kaler, John Metcalf. Where's John at? I just want to recognize John. Where are you at, John? Right there. John was key in getting this agreement between Marion Tech and OREC, okay, getting that going. He made the connections so that everybody could kind of get in the same room and discuss this thing. And then from there, Lynn Askins just began building the courses, working with Jay McCreary at Marion Tech. And so anyway, the advisory committee was formed. That advisory committee today is what we call the OEC Safety Curriculum Subcommittee. Okay, we meet twice a year. And so anyway, and then they hired a part-time instructor, Gary Simpson, who you see there with the long hair there in the yellow hard hat. Okay, and so anyway, and the program began several years later in 2004. The first Marion Tech course, it was the first OREC MTC course was UT 110 in October 2004. 12 guys in a room over at Marion Tech. Don't have pictures of that. But just to kind of give you an idea of what it was like. Some of you all remember, do you remember the telephone instructors that were teaching our guys how to climb? They were teaching our guys how to climb. They didn't know anything electrical. they didn't even know how to do pull-top rescue. The guys that came had to tell them how they were supposed to do rescue so that they could teach the rest of the class. And so anyway, so things were, it was pretty rough starting out. That was for 3 years. That happened for 3 years, okay, where they used those. So just a couple shots that I could get. Here you got cohorts 1 and 2. Those were the first 2 cohorts that started. Didn't have any pictures of those 2 classes actually over in Marion Tech. But you can see that we would mow. I mean, we were allowed to mow once a year behind Consolidated because that's all we could afford at the time. And so you can see the high weeds there and everything. And so anyway, and there you see Gary Simpson. He was the instructor. Gary was retired from Union Rural Electric. And so anyway, they hired him part-time. And then as time started moving along, there began to be some troubled times with the program. It was just tough. And so Pioneer actually pulled out of the program back in around 2006. I was just taking a guess. I don't know when that was exactly, Ron, but I believe it was 2006. Others considered leaving the program as well. And so there was talk of at least 2 more co-ops leaving the program as things just began to deteriorate a little bit. So discussions began to get heavy as far as hiring a full-time instructor. And anyway, and so there was an agreement, memorandum of understanding agreement formed between Marion Tech and OREC on April 7th, 2007. That's what it looked like. So anyway, the MOU, what it did was it allowed us to be able to hire an industry guy and yet work for Marion Tech. And so it's going to be like OREC would pay some extra wages from what Marion Tech would typically pay an instructor. So anyway, that agreement, keep that in mind, that agreement right there, because that's a problem, okay? And so anyway, and then in 2007, I had absolutely no desire to become the instructor, but if you want to ask me about the divine encounter I actually had at home one night, I actually had one. And so if you want to ask me about that, you can come up to me later, find out exactly what happened. Anyway, I made a phone call right after that, and it was pretty crazy. And I actually ended up becoming the first full-time instructor back in May of 2007. And so at the time, I was at Consolidated line crew supervisor there. And so anyway, yeah, that was a picture of one of the first times I helped there. 2007, 2010, we started to get some traction. Kind of the apprentice program becomes firmly established. Donations begin to come in. Back then it was the Bureau of Apprenticeship Training that we worked with, the BAT. So we worked hard to get the program BAT approved. We got that done. Then we branded. So does anybody in the room have any clue how we got the name COLT? Anybody besides Doug? Because I just told you. Okay, last week. I just told him last week. So the way that we got the name COLT was, well, I'm over at Marion Tech, okay? So that's where I'm, at every day is over at Marion Tech. And Ed Margraf, who was not the dean, but he was under the dean there. He was kind of in charge of me. Anyway, he come in one day and he says, hey, he said, I know what your program's going to be called. I said, you do? He said, yeah. He said, I had a dream last night, man. He said, your program is going to be called COLT, Central Ohio Lineworker Training School. And I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, so anyway, I got thinking about that, wrote it down, looked, I'm going, that S just doesn't fit. We took the S off. We became Central Ohio Lineworker Training. So that's actually how we branded as COLT in 2000, and it's right around 2009, 2010. We started the basic lineworker training program at that point. We really started getting a name nationally with the people we were putting out there because they were going out all across the nation. National Grid called us the #1 pre-apprenticeship program in the nation as far as the preferred training program in the nation to bring to hire as apprentices. And then, went the wrong way there. We hired some part-time instructors. You got Jim Alt and Dave Allen. Dave Allen from Mid-Ohio Energy, Jim Alt from Ohio Edison. 2 great instructors right there. Jim had to depart a little bit early. And then I got hired on then as the director in January 2013. And I couldn't find a replacement for 2 years. That was a problem. So it was only me as the instructor and the director for 2 years. And so anyway, thank God this man came along. And I'll never forget where I was when he called me. And he says, hey, I'm kind of interested in becoming the instructor. I go, oh, thank you, Lord. So anyway, but in the meantime now, okay, now we start having some complexities with the memorandum of understanding. And so during an audit in 2014, Marion Tech discovered that there was some serious problems with the MOU, and they demanded restructuring and restitution on things. And so anyway, Ken Kaler, he was in that meeting, Ken Kaler and myself, and Ken says, what are we going to do? I said, Ken, I said, we're fine, man. We don't need Marion Tech anymore. I said, we're fine. And so he said, really? I said, yeah, we're good, man. So anyway, we did. We pulled out. We terminated the agreement. It was like a 30-day clause or something, I think. And a new era begins, COLT program of OREC instead of COLT program Marion Tech. We got the issues figured out on the curriculum, and so through some legal stuff. Thank you, Kurt, very much for your efforts on that. And then discussions for the indoor training facility began. Pat O'Loughlin becomes CEO. Doug becomes VP of statewide services. We begin to talk about the facility. Doug and Kyle and I begin to brainstorm. Kyle's starting to get his feet really underneath him at that point now. Consolidated, they sell us 16 acres behind there. You can see that the acreage that they sold us right there. And so anyway, and then in the meantime, we visit some other facilities. Doug and I go to Virginia, AEP facility in Virginia, and we discover these, to put the poles in there. That was actually a key piece of the indoor training facilities, was that visit where we could find that model for the poles. But we mostly learned what not to do, and that's really why our facility is different than any other facility in the nation, because we didn't model it after any other facility, we modeled it what not to do that we've seen in other facilities. And so anyway, we signed a contract with J&F Construction, $732,000. Can you believe that? $732,000 that we actually that we had that built for back then. Kyle said it was how much now?
It's 1.6, 1.7 when I called J&F and asked them what it would be today to build COLT.
So yeah, so throw a 1 in front of that, and that's about what it is now, so which is pretty crazy. So anyway, you guys know the features. I'm not going to go through that because I'm getting into Kyle's time now. And so we dedicated the building July 2017, and Kyle, take it over, man.
Well, I'm the lucky one because I didn't have to put in any of the legwork when we got to COLT. All I had to do was take this thing and run with it, right? So, I mean, I had a great program there, a lot of stuff going on, and I'll never forget where I was either. When Dwight called me, I was clipping show pigs in my barn on a Saturday morning, and my phone rang, and it was Dwight saying, hey, have you ever thought about going into safety? And I said, who would want to do that? No one likes a safety guy, and I like to be liked. So no, I have zero interest in being a safety guy. And that's really how the story went. Day or two went by, I started thinking about it. I said, hey, let's talk. You know, you got ambitions in life, things are going. So I said, well, I'll give this thing a shot. So I started at OEC in June of 2014. And then one day, Dwight said, hey, why don't you come up to COLT and help me instruct one class? So I went up there, and then after I was there the first time, I'm like, how do I get here? How do I land here? And I was actually on my way to Mid-Ohio to do a safety meeting, and I called Dwight that morning, and I said, hey, what do you think the odds are that I could get to COLT? And he said, I think they're pretty good if you want to. And so that's how I ended up landing at COLT, was just a series of events, and everything happened the way it's supposed to as we work our way through some things. So like Dwight said, for 2014, OEC says, hey, we're growing to a level, we can do this thing on our own. 2014, they hired their second instructor, and that was me in October of 14. I got the nod to go up to COLT and kind of make COLT my home and grow it from where it is now. And so in 14-15, COLT takes on a new look, right? So it's no longer a one-man band. And that was a big deal. I know I am an AEP trained apprentice, unfortunately, from my time at Pioneer Electric as a lineman. We used the AEP program down at Groveport. Great program, great facility, nothing to knock it. It's not COLT. I will say that, but you know what? It was a good start for us. And one of the big things that I'd always heard about, why don't we do what all the other co-ops do? And they say, because if Dwight Miller ever left, where's the program? And that was the same thing that we had heard for South Central Power and others. So now that COLT's taken on a new look, they got a second person to help them out up there now. Now we start to see some numbers climb. Because that very next year, we put 19 students in the program, and 9 of the 19 belong to South Central Power or Pioneer. So those two say, hey, all right, very good. We're going to start moving on to this thing. And then it kept growing and growing and growing from there. So when I first got to COLT after they graduated them in July, there were 43 apprentices left in the program that time. I was like, all right, I got to manage 43 people. And now it's off the charts for the kind of management that we've got to do here. So little bit of a timeline on where things go. A lot has happened since I've been there in 10 years. It's pretty remarkable to think that it's been 10 years, and I'm very blessed to have even gotten to be a part of this thing as it goes through. So 2016, we start looking at things like, can you teach old dogs new tricks, right? So we start looking at JRP. It's a dream no more, and enrollment continues to keep on going up. So the Journeyman Refresher Program starts in 2016, and this was one of those moments where you're like, man, is this going to fly? Are we going to be able to get alpha males in a room from different places and have them become open to new ideas and new processes that they're going to work through? Or is this going to be a nightmare? What is this going to be? And I think when we first took this on, we accepted the fact that this was going to be an immense challenge. But what we said is, and some people didn't want to go, they were voluntold. We had a whole bunch of voluntold like, yep, you're going to go, and that's how this is going to work. And our philosophy on the JRP was really simple. If you're here because you don't want to be here, we understand that. But if you leave here in 3 days and you don't want to come back, shame on us. And what we were able to do then is make it a very open and safe environment for those guys to talk. And all we do is facilitate it. We let them kind of run the class most of the way through it. We just give them points to talk about, and they started to build camaraderie. And the next thing you know, people are trying to come back for JRP. They don't have any problems. And we have good food and snacks at COLT too, so I won't take that away from us either. All right, 2017, this is Dream No More. Dwight Miller had a dream, and he took it to Pat, and he took it to Doug, and they were willing to listen, and that's what good senior leadership does. They are willing to listen, let you bend to ear, and say, hey, what's important to you? And you know, this program was really important to Dwight, and they listened to that, and he said, let's be trend-setting. Let's do what we've always done here in Ohio, and that's be leaders, not followers. And they said, okay, what's it going to take to get this done? And in 2017, the building's complete. It's no longer a dream. It's something that we're actually utilizing now. So we've got students in there. These are cold weather, inclement days where they're able to do anything you can do outside. We can do it in the facility now. And we don't have to go dark. Typically at COLT, December, January, and February, we did not train. We shut the whole system down, and then in March through November, we would train because the weather in Ohio is not very conducive to learning in December, January, and February. And we always get the question about the indoor facility, and I've had it where I've talked at Safety Summit and things about COLT, and they said, why did you build a facility? Don't line workers have to work out in the weather? Yes, as a lineman, I worked in lots of conditions that were less than ideal. But I had just worked in them, and I did a skill that I was already trained and competent in to just go out and do. I wasn't worried about staying warm. I wasn't worried about all these things. I didn't have to. All I did was just go about and do the work. When you're trying to teach someone, we got to use Maslow's hierarchy of learning. It says, got to meet people's basic needs, food, water, shelter. We got the food and water thing covered. The shelter piece was an issue for those cold weather times there. So we've been able to do this. I mean, this is a day where I remember this day, it was like raining, then it turned to snow. We don't miss a beat. Don't miss a beat inside the facility. One of my favorite pictures I've ever taken at COLT right there with the flag in the background, a couple people up there. And then here's one where this is a newbie group that's in there. They're building their first single phase construction line. Andy, you might be in this picture right here. This might have been your group as you come through the process here. So it's no longer a dream, right? And in 2018, the numbers keep growing. So COLT keeps growing. We get to a point, it's like, I was like, Dwight, it's getting to be a lot up here. You know what I mean? It is. I mean, writing reviews on Thursday nights, you know, I'm by myself up there, and I said, it's getting to be a lot. The numbers kind of, so we got Chris Napier from our department who was doing a fantastic job already in the ST&LT department. And he said, hey, I'll come up to COLT with you. I'll help you run this thing. And then him and I just kind of took it from there, and it was fantastic. Chris is a great addition to what we do. He's a fantastic instructor at COLT, and he's very, very knowledgeable. And him and I, you know what I mean? We bounce a lot of things off each other up there every single day. And we'll be out on visits, and it's like, hey, am I right here? Am I thinking right? Or he'll call, hey, am I thinking right? And that's what you got to have up there. So 2020 then, COLT's in need of more room, more storage. 2021, it's time to build some depth, and then COLT heads out into the field with the crews in 2021 as well there. So in 2020, as the numbers kept going, we needed more materials. We needed more gear. We needed more trucks and everything else. So we look at this thing and say, okay, we've acquired trucks, and we've got some co-ops that have been fantastic to us. Union Rural Electric has donated a digger truck, Guernsey Muskingum, a bucket truck. We've had Frontier do a bucket truck, Consolidated. It's helped us a great deal with bucket trucks. I mean,
Butler was the first.
Yeah, they got the old.
Butler got the ball
we
rolling.
just got rid of that truck there not too long ago too.
Wow.
Yeah, the '99 Altec there. So that was the year I graduated high school. We were still rolling that thing up there. So it was exciting. So we've got all this equipment now. What we started to see was, man, we got trucks sitting outside. And if you got trucks sitting outside, we all know the problems that could cause. The birds start building nests in them. So we were doing our yearly inspections just like you guys have to. We're out there doing our DOTs. We're doing our annual dielectric testing, and we're not getting good results out of it. We're digging bird nests out. We're failing these tests. And it's like, how then can we lower those costs, right? And so we looked and said, well, what's some cold storage look like? So we looked at this building. We got all the trucks inside, all of our material out of the backside of the building there, and it allowed us just to grow and just become more orderly. I know many of you guys have been to COLT. I think we had like 50, 60 people at COLT yesterday, which is a fantastic turnout to see the facility, what it's about. Thank you for coming. If you've come in the past, thanks for that, or yesterday. But I hope what you've seen is it's neat and orderly. I mean, we've got it buttoned up there where things need to be. 2021, then, we keep moving in the direction we don't think we're heading. Not the wrong direction. We just, at some point, you think this thing is going to level. It's going to start to work its way down. We've trained all the people we need to train, and the next thing you know, it just keeps going and going and going. And it doesn't matter how many emails I send out to your co-ops to say, hey, who's hiring? And then just like this year, the number was 16. We're going to put 30 in. So that was an email from the first of the year to now. We went from 16 to 30, and that's just how it kept going. So Rich Klingel came from Consolidated Electric. Chris Napier also came from Mid-Ohio, by the way. He was a line worker at Mid-Ohio. Rich is from Consolidated, went through the COLT program the same way Chris did, but I had the pleasure of having Rich as a student while I was there at COLT. And it was interesting. I mean, me and Rich was talking about the other day. I learned a lot, and he learned a lot, allowed me to learn as we were going up through this thing. So pretty exciting to have Rich up there. So, and then 2021, we look at this thing and say, okay, we're bringing on a third instructor. We've got some additional areas that we can improve, and we can offer some different services to our co-ops. So one of those said, we need to get out to the field. We need to get to the field. We've got the Journeyman Refresher Program now that we're able to touch some journeymen, bring them back in, do some refresher training. We're touching a large amount of apprentices now, more than we ever thought, but there's still a group of people that we can't contact. And that, like line supervisors, or just the journeymen that said they weren't voluntold, or they hadn't had the ability to come to COLT yet. So it's like, how can we bring all this together? Because if we're teaching apprentices one thing, and we're teaching journeymen one thing, but they're doing something totally different in the field, then are we teaching anything? And that's really what it comes down to. So we go out in the field on these COLT visits, and we actually work shoulder to shoulder with the crews. So you get a COLT instructor out on a job site. We go up, we're there, we have all the same gear on. They do everything that we would use as a line worker, and we're willing to run a shovel, but we're willing to teach right beside it. And it's not about telling people what to do when we're out there saying, hey, you're not doing this right. It's about blending in the field, instruction formally, and how do we get these two worlds to come together and get back on the same track with each other, right? And what can we do to move the needle and raise the bar of what we've got going on? So we've got the COLT visits going. 2022 then, we keep growing, and now we need double classes. It's like, hey, there's only so many availability of weeks to run class in a year. Typically, we do that math, and we say there's about 40 weeks of training that we can do. You get to holiday weeks, you do vacation weeks, you do advanced training for our people. You know, people got to go for CLCPs, continuing education themselves. We got 40 weeks of school that we can run. Well, when you start creeping above 40 weeks of class that you got to offer between apprenticeship and JRP, we need more room. We need to be able to run additional classes. Or the other option is then we just got to increase our class sizes. And that is just one thing that we have never compromised. It is so important that you keep the numbers low when you're out in the field. A 4-to-1 ratio is what we stand by, is what we live with, is something we've never been willing to compromise. Because out in the field, when you're working with these people hands-on, they need you with them. You know, you think about the unfortunate accident that just happened at Northwest Lineman's College. I mean, it got 20-to-1 ratios, and a young man climbs a pole, nobody's watching him, and it breaks. This is a problem. This is something that we never want to be in that place at COLT. So 4-to-1 is where we stay, so we've got to get double classes going. We reach a milestone in 2023, one that we can be super proud of in Ohio. The family grows again, but we also have to say goodbye. And then COLT reaches some extraordinary new heights. So the second classroom comes about in 2022. This actually happened because we said yes to a building. So when we built the cold storage building, this room that you actually see used to have garage doors in it. It's where we parked a truck or two, had all of our gear, all of the hoists, the grips, the ropes, everything was back here in this room, and that's where we stored it. And so when we built the new truck barn that you guys see in the cold storage, it opened up this back half. And as we start looking, I'm like, hey, we got room for a classroom. We can add to what we're doing. So we went to Dwight, went to Doug, went to Pat, the senior staff, and said, hey, I think if we can build a second classroom, we can take on a lot more students, and it looks like we're still trending in that area. We've got to do something. Even though the indoor facility was built with a second kind of a classroom station in mind, after you build it, you have an idea. It wasn't the best setup for running a class in there, but now we had this extra space. So it's kind of like we've always had this ability at COLT to see around corners. Sometimes we got lucky, and other times we knew what was coming at the horizon, and when we got there, we were ready to act on it. So it's been exciting to have that. So we got a second classroom, fully functional now, ready to go back in the back. In 2023, all 24 electric cooperatives were in the program. So we got Erica in the back there. She's now the manager at Adams, and when she took on that role, she said, hey, we got to get people at COLT. And so in the first time in 2023, all 24 electric cooperatives in Ohio were using the COLT program. Currently today, there is an apprentice from every single co-op in the program at COLT right now, which is remarkable. I mean, and you know, I've seen it on mutual aid. I had the ability to go down to South Central a couple years ago when they got hit pretty good by an ice storm. What do we have? Almost 50 workers from Ohio down there. And you know what? The great thing that we heard all the way around is they work just like us. They're doing it just like we do. Mm-hmm. When I was on mutual aid as a line worker, there were times like, no, we don't do it like that. Oh, we do it this way. Well, we're going to do it our way. And that was what happens when you get in the field and you get out there. It's like, no, we're going to do it the way we know how to do it at Pioneer, and South Central did it their way, and Guernsey did it. I mean, everyone had their own way of doing things. Now you see this blend where it's like we're all doing things the exact same way because we're all being trained the same, and we have this ability now to bring everyone on board as we go. Also in 2023, numbers keep growing. Want to build some depth in the program, want to build some depth just for some recession or different pieces. We get Taylor Harris to come on board. So we look at it and say, man, we got to get 4 instructors up here. And one of the things on the next slide here, I'll go to this one real quick, is because we had to say goodbye. Because Gary Simpson, who had been doing this for 19 years, the first instructor to go to Marion Tech, they actually hired him and said, hey, we need you to do 1 class. He never left till December of last year. He never left. He's been here the entire time with us. So, I mean, just a fantastic individual. And so Gary came to us earlier in the year and said, I'm tired. I said, well, what kind of tired are you? What do you need? You need a nap? You need some time off? He's like, no, I'm tired of driving from Marysville to COLT a little bit. You know what I mean? He's been done it a long time. And he said, I'm just getting to the point where I think it's time to run the food pantry with my wife and be there where I want to be and things like that. So we said, okay. Dave said, I still got some gas left in the tank, but I would like to not have to work, 30 weeks a year, if that's all right. I'd like to be somewhat retired. So that's kind of how we got to Taylor then. We looked at this thing and said, well, if we're losing one, and then Dave's, tired. Now, Dave does mow the grass, and the place looks like a golf course, and he continues to mow grass, but he loves to mow grass. So it's, I always see my phone going off on a Saturday saying someone just unlocked the alarm at COLT. And I'm like, well, Dave's mowing grass today. So keeps the place looking fantastic up there. So enrollment over the years, you can see the numbers that we've had. So these numbers are all based off the calendar year. So typically we have 5 cohorts going through a calendar year at one time. So when someone graduates, they've got newbies. So when I first went to COLT, when I went back and looked at the numbers, there were 68 people that turned the door at COLT for an apprenticeship in 2014. All right, so 68 people pulled a door and said, I'm here for training there. Now today, this year alone, if nothing else changes, which I believe it will, because we've got assessments on the book still and some co-ops calling, we have 164 apprentices in our program today as it sets. 164 apprentices in the program. I mean, that doesn't count our journey. So now you can see that at the bottom, the orange is the journeyman scale. So in 16, you can see we started out with a real small class, and then we started growing it, and then the monster of COVID hit. And then so we understood the value of keeping the journeyman at home, making sure that we had the ability to provide that reliable power to our folks. And so now we're trying to work it back up as we go. But the one thing that we were hoping for is this equilibrium would cross paths eventually. So if you want to increase the journeyman program, at some point in time, you have to think the apprenticeship program is going to go down and we're going to cross, right, and get this equilibrium. We're not seeing that. We're still seeing driving forces that say we're going to keep moving in a different direction here. The numbers at COLT, of the 164, 90% of them belong to our Ohio co-ops. So this is not a, hey, you train for, how many people here do we train for? Are we taking spots away from the Ohio? It doesn't change our numbers much. So 10% we have from the municipalities that were there with us at the very beginning that have been grandfathered into COLT. We offer training for 3 other electric cooperatives. We offer training to Harrison Rural Electric, which is the only co-op out of West Virginia. They're part of statewide services. We offer to Midwest Energy out of Michigan because they're a part of Buckeye Power. And then we also offer training to Northwestern PA. They have lines that trickle into Ohio, and they found a way into it. You know, I said, well, they're part of us, so we'll take them on. And we've told other people that right now we just can't help you, you know, because of where we sit and what we've got going on, and there's been lots of others. But 90% of the COLT enrollment belongs to us. So even if you look at it and say, well, what about the other 10? I mean, it's a person in this class, a person in that class. It doesn't change a cohort. It doesn't add numbers or anything to what we've got going on. So lessons learned in training and retention over the years. So here's my Jim Trestle moment, okay? The data says that in order to retain somebody, you need cognitive awareness. Right? And everybody just said, damn, that's what he did last night, right? So I know, if I had the crystal ball for this, I promise you I'd give you the potion. And what's interesting to me is we've seen it change over the years. Retention is obviously one of those things that we always want to do, right? We hire someone, we put them through 4 years of training. We would love to get 35, 40 years out of them. I mean, that's not rocket science for us to figure out, right? But why is this thing? Look, honestly, when I look at it, it's changed completely. It's changed completely over the years too. Hey, we started doing all this transmission rebuilding. There was money out there. People started chasing the dollar, so we had to backfill. That was a problem for a long time. Now it's a totally different gig. Right now, I mean, we've lost people. This year alone, we've lost 4 people who took line work. We got 2 of them that went and while they were linemen, bought excavators, and now they're doing full-time excavation because there's money to be made there. We got one that was a lineman, and now he's running his own electrician business. You know, we got one person who said, I'm going to be a plumber. The skilled labor market everywhere across the board is in such need of workers and people that there is a lucrative side to that, and some of these young people are willing to go give life a try. The loyalty factor, I'm not saying they're not loyal, because they are loyal. They're loyal to the things that matter, but for them, the loyalty only extends so far, and it's just tough. I wish I could tell you what it was. Some of it's retirement. Some of it's been we're robbing, beg, borrow, stealing across the industry, and then others of that has branched out to other just skilled labor markets that, you know, there's money to be made there, and people are willing to go give it a shot. So things we're super proud of at COLT. We've got the West Virginia program going on where folks that go through the COLT program, they get 45 of the 60 credit hours required for an associate's degree. Our program is accredited through the National Technical College Institute. They came in, they actually said COLT's good for 52, but the Department of Labor, National Department of Labor says you can only give 3/4 of a college degree for an apprenticeship. So they limited us to 45. Our people can take 5 college classes and get a degree. I think that just goes to show how valuable and how much COLT has grown to curriculum-wise and the things that we do teach and how important it is. We got the Ohio Tech Cred program where 11 of our 12 classes fall under the tech program, and all 5 of the JRP classes fall under the tech program. So the only one they won't pay us for is a safety class, and we're not going to do away with safety class. That's a really, really important class, and that's just one that we can't get the credit for there. So we've done great things with the Farm Bureau. We've done Explore Ag Days where we're getting young people to COLT, high school age kids into the COLT program for a day. We got stations worked up. They can work around. I think every one of these we've ran, someone has called and said, hey, I'm a line worker now, and I went to COLT. I went to the Explore Ag Day with you guys. And they got into line work because of it. Awesome people want to be a part of awesome things. COLT, everyone that walks into COLT says, I want to be a part of this. Altech donates trucks every single year. Beer tool meters. Milwaukee has probably donated $30,000 worth of hand tools and gear to us at COLT. They do an apprenticeship of the week program. Every week we give the best student of the week a new hand tool. All donated free by Milwaukee. Buckingham gave $10,000 worth of climbing tools. And so we want everyone in here climbing in a Buckingham. So we've got the new G&W Viper at COLT we just got. Schweitzer Panels just donated stuff to COLT. So everyone that walks in there wants to be a part of this because the facility is like nothing they've ever seen. It doesn't work like that. COLT's a desired destination. We've had the managers, we've had the OREC boards, HR, accounting group, government affairs. I mean, we've had all kinds of people want to come to COLT. Other states have come to COLT. I am proud to report right now that Idaho almost has a sister to COLT built. So that's pretty exciting to know that we've helped them kind of move their needle there. The Farm Bureau, teachers groups, and most importantly, the destination for apprentices, journeymen, and other people that work in our cooperative network. They want to get to COLT. Our apprentices are walking in the door. They're happy to be there. The journeymen are happy to be there. Folks are happy to come to COLT. They want to come see the place. They want to come and see something that's great that they've been a part of, and it's really exciting. So the learning environment at COLT. We built a learning environment at COLT that allows failure to be okay. We don't tell people what to do at COLT because we've all learned very well being told what to do, right? We've all had great lessons in life we've learned, and most of them have not been because we took good advice. It was we had sound advice and said, I think you're wrong, let me try it anyway. And we've tried and failed, right? And that's what COLT should be. an opportunity for folks to come in there, try things, fail, learn from them, take it back to where it really matters. We don't tell people what to do. We give people the skills, the resource, and the knowledge they need to make informed decisions when they need to. That's what we want, because when it's their idea, it'll be a good decision. That's what they'll come up with. We encourage the whys. We want people to ask why. I mean, without the whys of life, what are we doing, right? I mean, no one likes to be told because I said so. Nobody likes that. So we want to explain why to people so they can make good decisions. We don't expect them to like it. I look at it all the time. I tell my kids at home, I just had this conversation with my daughter. She was like, I don't like this. I'm like, I don't need you to like it. I need you to understand it. And that's really what it's about. You're allowed to have an opinion. We just need you to understand why this is the way it is. And then when you can explain why to people and you let them learn from your mistakes, then you're training. There's no doubt about it. You're able to train. So we got a short video for you. I'm a little over time, but we'll work through this baby here. So.
When I came here in 2006, we were still using the merchant program, which is basically a correspondence program. The guys would take tests and everything was on-the-job training. 2006, we sent our first apprentices through what is now the COLT program, starting off at Marion Technical College in a partnership with them. We've come tremendous ways since then and seen some invaluable programs coming out of that. The facility we have now is so much greater than what we started off with. It allowed not only the training programs for our linemen, but skill assessments, pre-employment assessments, all of those type of things.
It's been a pillar of our safety program. We use COLT from entry-level screening and assessments to determine pre-hire physical requirements. We also use them to determine our gaps for those that have experience in the trade. We've gotten really good feedback on those evaluations. The facility's fantastic. Having the indoor and outdoor allows us to train year-round, get more students through that. And then in conjunction with that, COLT is now coming to us in the form of the COLT program that helps with observation on site. So we get a really good look at work practices here, coaching engagements, and we've really been able to kind of connect all those dots.
The COLT program in itself is very beneficial. I think it's very interesting, watching the employees mature through the 4+ years of going to COLT. At the end of the day, there's a tremendous amount of experience that they gain, not only from the classroom, but from their peers, right? That they bring back from their daily operations, and they share those experiences and the experiences from the COLT instructors as well.
I'd say going to COLT has really gave me the career. I mean, that's where I learned how to do my work and how to do it safely. I mean, without COLT, I think it would have been twice as long for me to learn the stuff that I needed to know versus a 5-year period. So COLT has really helped me out in that aspect.
COLT has definitely been a benefit to my future as a lineman. Coming in to URE with no experience, the growth and the maturity level for me through COLT is real.
I would say it would be life-changing for Holmes Wayne. Coming through the program as a lineman myself and not having that COLT program when I started, I'd have gave a lot of things to have had that opportunity that the young men have today and women that go into the program. But so we've been part of this program from the start, and it's accelerated drastically over the years to an awesome program that we have. To me, one of the best in the nation, if not the best in the nation. We've got some really awesome instructors here that really give our young gentlemen apprentices a great base of knowledge. Obviously at the co-ops back home, they get the on-the-job training, but to have all this available to them is unbelievable for them to go through all the different sequences on how the processes that they need for in the line work. So it's been instrumental for the apprentices.
Our apprenticeship is very much in line amongst cooperatives across the state. We're using the same work practices, similar systems. It's benefited us from mutual aid response, helping one another, and the Journeyman Refresher Program. We've seen a lot of value in that, of those that didn't go through a technical training program have been able to take advantage of that as well. So a lot of continuity and benefit to us.
We've been using the pre-hire assessment from COLT for a number of years now. Generally, we're using it for when we're hiring for apprentices, ground workers, and it was amazing to me the first time that we used the program, and we had four potential employees that we took up to COLT and did the assessment, and how the rankings changed after the assessment, right? So people can interview pretty well, but when you actually put them in a situation where they have to perform a task or something, different characteristics and traits will shine on different people.
Just recently, we took 5 young men down to COLT. But before we went down there, we had a perception in our minds of who was going to do well and who wasn't. And as it happened before, we had what was going to be our best candidate, we thought, actually came in last. So it just goes to show you, they can sit across the table from you and you can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk?
We can see a lot of things through the interview process, but when we get them down there and we can see how they work and how they take instruction, it lets us know that we're going to be picking the best of the group. We usually take 2 to 3 people down there at a time to try and see how everybody reacts to different scenarios, and we feel that we've made some really good hires because of that assessment.
A linemen are not all the same, so taking them up the COLT and giving them the opportunity to show us what they understand as far as requirements and performing tasks from cover up to climbing, and what their skill sets are and where we would rank them. And then at the end of the day, COLT is able to provide a list of classes through the COLT program that they recommended that the A linemen take up to refresh themselves or kind of bring them up to co-op standards. So that's been pretty beneficial as well.
The COLT program's in line with what we teach here at South Central Power. We work hand in hand with the instructors at COLT, and when our guys come back here, they bring things back to the crew that sometimes some of our guys haven't had the experience yet or went through that exact program. So they're able to work with the other guys on the crew and help out and let them know what's being taught at COLT.
Safety, it's paramount here at our organization. The consistency that we've seen has been great, and we're really able to get a good look and instant feedback and shore up those gaps as we recognize them.
So I personally never had a chance to go through the COLT program, and we have some other linemen here that did not go through that program, either. So I find it very beneficial that our new group of guys coming through get to go through it, that our journeymen that never had the chance to go through that program now do. When they come back, there's a lot of excitement in their voice about what they learned, what they bring back to the crew and stuff, and it's a very overall positive experience.
So each time you go to COLT, you learn just a little bit more, you get just a little bit better. But 2 things that really stood out to me were grounding and cover-up or rubber gloving. So learning to ground the proper way and why we do it, and being able to implement the proper procedures for the job you're doing will keep you safe. And safety is number 1 priority. I want to go home at night just like everybody else does.
That the instructors up there are awesome. I've got to go up there quite a few times with pre-assessments and stuff like that, and they're very open to new ideas. They're very honest feedback for us with our pre-assessments. So it's just a great experience.
And that is the key. You can have the best facilities in the world, but unless you've got the instructors, it's not going to be the same. It makes my job easier in that I know we are getting quality people to do our line work. They come in here and they're being trained properly. They're being trained the safe way to do things. I'm not going to be worrying at night that they're not doing things safely. They've been taught the right way to do them.
Just want to say thank you to everyone who's had a hand or had a part in the COLT program over the years. I know that this has been a big ask sometimes up at COLT, and then some of the things that we have, they're not cheap, but we all in this room understand the value of keeping our people safe, and that we put a lot of stock in training and opportunities for them to grow to do the things we want. And I hope that it's something that you're proud of, that you have COLT up there. So one of the things I always like to share with everybody too, though, is that I think it's really important. One day I was walking out of COLT, and you always look for these things in life where you think you've made it, right? You think you've finally reached the pinnacle of where you are. So walked out the door one day at COLT, and the Goodyear blimp was flying over. And the blimp doesn't show up for just anybody, right? They only show up at the best sporting events there is. And when I looked at that, I said, you got to be kidding me. We've made it. The blimp is here. So we took a picture. You can check that out. That's not Photoshop. That's legit right there. So thank you all so much for everything you do to allow us at COLT to do the things we do. And hopefully it's something that you're extremely proud of. And thanks, everyone. Thanks for all the seniors.
Kyle,
Thank you.
I just have one. I just want to say one thing or ask Dwight. So the title of this program is Celebrating 20 Years of Lineman Training. We oftentimes look at the COLT program singularly. And it's a great program. I'd just like Dwight to talk about the rest of the team just a minute, because what we do at COLT is reinforced by a lot, by Dwight and 2 other instructors. So I just want Dwight to just talk about, the other bookend of this training program for just a second.
You have the best safety and loss team in the nation, in my opinion. It's hands down. It's not even close. We have 9 folks in our department. I'd love to have I should have put a picture in there of the guys, but we have 4 at COLT. We have Jason and Zach doing the monthly safety meetings, just doing an amazing job. We have Harrison Metcalf, a young upcomer. An amazing young man. Is going to be in that department a long time, making a huge impact on your folks. And then we have Steve Savon, who is looked at as the guy in compliance and regulatory in the nation. So it's just a phenomenal team that. I'm extremely humbled just to be a part of this department. It's just an amazing department. I'll tell you, this man here, what he has done, what he did at COLT, was amazing. He took what I started and he just made it 10 times better. And so I'm just extremely thankful for Kyle. But I do want to also say just a thank you I want to reiterate what Kyle said, to the OREC board. Thank you all. To the STNLP committee, you guys in that room, thank you. To everyone in this room, thank you. To Doug for allowing us to have that conversation with you about the indoor facility, thank you. Where'd Pat go? I was going to say thank you to Pat, but he's gone. We're just very thankful for everything. We really are. We don't take it for granted. It's amazing what we have here in the state, and we don't take it for granted. It's because I love what you guys are doing with your safety programs, and you guys supporting what we do it's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal to be a part of it. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks.